All right, so our first presentation is from Allan Pearlman. So this is not WordPress specific. I just thought it was really interesting. Allan's been a member of our Meetup for years, and he emailed me to tell me about an internet domain dispute with Robin Cook, the best-selling author. I thought it was so interesting that I asked him to come by and speak about it. So, Allan Pearlman.
Thanks, Steve. So, what I'm going to talk about today is how internet domain name disputes are resolved. Specifically, substantively, what you need to do to win, what you have to prove. Also, if we have time, there are a few pretty interesting cases that we can talk about, and also quickly, if you find yourself in a situation where you have a domain name that someone else says should be theirs, or someone else has a domain name that you think should be yours, where do you go? Do you go to federal court? Do you go to state court? Do you have an arbitration? Where do you go? Who decides? Who decides these things? Now, as Steve said, this talk grew out of a case that I worked on a few months ago for Robin Cook, not only a doctor, but a thriller novel writer. His first breakout novel was in 1977, Coma, which was then made into a movie, then made into another movie, I think, and I think the Scott brothers are making it into yet another movie. I'm not 100% sure about that, but anyway. And since 1977, Robin Cook has written another 28 or 29 thrillers, all of which have been on the New York Times bestseller list. So, before this case, if you were to go hunting for Robin Cook on the internet, and you decided to type in robincook.com, what you would see if it were like 1999 or 2000 or 2002, you would see this. You would see celebrity1000.com, a celebrity fan site which, as you can see, is very interested in leggy supermodels, which of course has its value, but has nothing to do with Robin Cook. And then, if later, like say 2006, up until a few months ago, you were to try typing robincook.com into your browser, you would see this. Nothing. Page not found, error 404. Now, I jumped the gun. Since late 2011, if you go to robincook.com, now you can see this, Robin Cook's own website. There he is up in the right-hand corner. In the lower left is his newest book, which is probably doing well and is a whole lot of fun. How did this happen? Let's see. Oh, not how did this happen. Robin Cook is not the only person to have this problem. It happens to a lot of people. It also happens to companies. Allstate Insurance has had issues. Guinness Stout, the beer, has had domain name dispute issues. Alamo Rent-A-Car has had domain name disputes, and probably about a gazillion other companies. But in any case, because I was dealing with people, here are some of the people who you may have heard of who have also had internet domain name disputes. We've got him, we've got her, we've got him, we've got that old guy. Each and every one of them had to fight for their taking control of the internet domain name, which is their name plus .com. And so the question now is, what did they have to prove in order to win? Not that this guy is an expert in that, but he certainly used the word. You have to prove three things. First, you have to prove that the internet domain name in dispute is identical or confusingly similar. Those are the magic words. Identical or confusingly similar to the complainant's mark. And a quick aside, the person challenging who wants to take control of a domain name, I'm going to call complainant because that's what we call it in cases like this. The person who has the domain name, who would be a defendant, is called the respondent. Second, in order to prevail on your domain name dispute case, you also have to show that the respondent has no rights or legitimate interests in the disputed domain name. And we'll talk about what constitutes that shortly. And third, there's a third thing, which is escaping me. Actually, I do know. The third thing is, respondent has registered and is using the disputed domain name in bad faith. So, identical or confusingly similar, no rights or legitimate interests, and registered and using the domain name in bad faith. So, let's talk about the first one, identical or confusingly similar. Deciders in these cases, the judges who decide these, look at a number of factors. Like in the identical or confusingly similar part, there are two pieces to this. First, you must establish that you have trademark rights. Alamo Rent-A-Car registered Alamo as a trademark. And for companies and names that are registered, you demonstrate, yes, I registered this. So Allstate Insurance did it, Guinness did it, Victoria's Secret did it. Then for people who have a claim, people frequently don't register their names as a trademark. Instead, not that they can't, but frequently they don't. So when a name is not registered, it is still possible sometimes to develop what are called common law trademark rights to the name. And so Mick Jagger has developed common law trademark rights. Robin Cook did. The other famous people I was talking about before, Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts, J.R.R. Tolkien, all have been found to have common law trademark rights. The way that happens is through continuous, extensive use in commerce. All of these celebrities have been trading on their name. We buy their stuff, their music, their movies, in part because we know their name. Once it is established that there is a trademark right, either way, registered or common law, then there must be a proof that the name is in fact identical or confusingly similar to the domain name that's being fought about. So, does Mick Jagger equal mickjagger.com? The answer is yes. Then it gets a little trickier. Oh God, I spelled it wrong. I'm sorry. Guinness has two N's. But does Guinness, and just imagine there's a second N in there, Does the trademark Guinness, is that the same, identical, or confusingly similar to Guinness Beer Really Really Sucks.com? We'll talk about that later. Now, jumping to the second of the three factors that have to, elements that have to be proved. Again, in these cases, the judges look at a number of factors, and I have a few examples collected. One thing to prove is that the respondent is not known as and has never been known by the disputed domain name. So, for example, the defendant in the Robin Cook, or respondent in the Robin Cook case, is an entity, company, who knows what it was, called Alberta Hot Rods. They're up in Canada, I guess in Alberta. Does Alberta Hot Rods, is Alberta Hot Rods known as Robin Cook? No. Has it ever been known as Robin Cook? No. Did it ever get permission to use the name Robin Cook? No. So, it's not looking so hot for Alberta Hot Rods.
Oh, there's some seats over here.
Let's see. Okay, so I was going to wait till everyone sat down, but welcome everyone, and I will keep going because it's a full schedule tonight. Another factor is the disputed domain name, is it being used? If it just goes nowhere, like the error 404 page not found page, it's going nowhere, and that's called passive holding, and that's an indicator that the registrant who controls it doesn't really have a legitimate interest or right to it. Further, no bona fide offering of goods or services, no legitimate non-commercial or fair use. Sometimes, like with the Robin Cook case, the domain name redirects to some other website which offers goods and services unrelated to the complainant's name. So, like the first example, the case that I did recently, robincook.com for a few years went to Celebrity 1000, which maybe was selling t-shirts and posters, but it really had nothing to do with Robin Cook. The third element, registered and being used in bad faith. This again is another factual analysis, looking at what's going on, and the standard is a mouthful. You see it kind of creeping out onto the screen here, and I think I spelled everything right. Here, the registrant has intentionally attempted to attract, for commercial gain, trying to make money, internet users to the website by creating a likelihood of confusion with the complainant's mark as to the source, sponsorship, affiliation, and endorsement of respondent's website. So when Celebrity 1000 was redirecting internet surfers from robincook.com over to Celebrity 1000, some fan of Robin Cook could say, oh, is Robin Cook into a celebrity fan site? Is Robin Cook now into Britney Spears and what Selma Hayek is up to? Did he create it? Did he sponsor it? Is he teaming up with someone? Is he affiliated? Is he saying this is okay? Well, no, he had nothing to do with it. And so there is a likelihood of confusion. That is how that analysis works. Again, the passive holding issue. If someone registers a domain name and doesn't use it, and it just goes to a page not found, that is considered evidence of bad faith registration. It's a sort of use it or lose it argument. And another bit of analysis, another factor is whether the respondent registered the domain name specifically to prevent the person or company that owns the trademark from being able to create a website with their name. And that's can be a kind of squishy analysis. And further, if the registrant registers a domain name and then goes to a person who should have it and says, hey, I'll sell it to you, that's very bad. That is considered really bad faith. And the powers that be that govern the workings of the internet seem to be pretty well determined to discourage that practice. That wasn't going on in the Robin Cook case, though. Alberta Hot Rods did not try and sell it. In fact, before bringing the action, we asked for them to just give it to us, and we never heard anything. An additional element of bad faith is, has the registrant done it before? And there are a number of people out there who seem to make a career of registering famous names, companies, or people, and hanging on to them, building websites with them, having them, and trying to sell them. Alberta Hot Rods and the fellow who created Alberta Hot Rods has registered thousands of famous people's names and has been the defendant or respondent in domain name dispute cases at least a couple dozen times. So that was an argument I got to make. He's done it before, and before, and before. So, now, the respondent, to defend, what does the respondent have to do? In the first instance, nothing, because it is the complainant's burden of proof to prove the three elements, but second, in the instance where the complainant demonstrates the first prong, identical or confusingly similar, then the burden shifts, and the respondent then must come forward with evidence to show that, in fact, he or she or it does have a right to legitimate interests in the domain name. And like in many situations, it's frequently a good idea to aggressively defend by putting forth evidence, even if the complainant has not. Now, getting back to Guinness, spelled correctly. There was a guy who registered this domain name and about 8 others very similar to this. Do you think he got to keep it? Or do you think that the Guinness company got to take it away? Any thoughts on this from anyone?
He kept it.
Okay, anyone else?
Malice is obvious.
I'm sorry?
Malice?
Malice. I don't know that they discussed malice.
That's free speech, right? He's got a right. It's like a review.
That's part of the argument. The answer is, oops. The answer is not Glenn Beck. The answer is, to my surprise, the guy did not get to keep it. The Guinness company took it away. And the reason, as I sort of think I understand it, is that in the identical or confusingly similar piece of this, they talked about this as being identical or confusingly similar, and I thought, that's ridiculous. You can tell that this is not from the Guinness Company. But sort of the logic that they use is that this guy created a domain name which, if you set up a website, would attract visitors who like Guinness or are fans of Guinness and are just curious, and by so doing would be kind of improperly grabbing internet traffic using Guinness's good name, which it's turning into a bad name. With things like this, there is, suck sites, they're sometimes called. Gripe sites, they're also called. Complaint sites. You have to look really closely at the facts. Though, a little bit to my surprise, there seems to be a larger and larger body of cases that tend to give famous name sucks.com back to the owner of the trademark.
What would he do with it?
I'm sorry?
What would he do with it?
Make sure no one else puts up a critical site, basically.
Let's
Okay, last thing. So,
oh boy.
this is a real website.
Changes everything.
Does anyone, based on all we've talked about, does anyone have a guess as to whether the creator of that website, Glenn Beck raped and murdered a young girl in 1990.com, got to keep it? Or did Glenn Beck and his production company succeed in their domain name dispute case to take it away? Anyone?
Who took it away?
How about the other way?
The guy got to keep it.
Wow.
And the reason that he got to keep it is that he created an actual website. He made no money off of it. And he made it explicitly a parody site, explicitly political satire. On the website, it said, we don't have any evidence that Glenn Beck raped and murdered a young girl in 1990, and we doubt that he did. But then again, we don't have any evidence that he did not do so. And why isn't Glenn Beck denying this? And then below that, there's additional text saying, this is the way Glenn Beck makes arguments. We are copying his rhetorical style. And this is political satire. It's parody. And he and the creator of the website prevailed. Now, so I'm running out of time. Very quickly, most of these cases are done through something called the Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution Procedure, or UDRP, which was created by ICANN, that's ICA, and the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. That is the ruler of Internet domain names. It's how the bunches of numbers that your computer reads will take you to Google if you type google.com, and how it'll take you to wpnyc.org if you type that in. The decisions are done by companies called domain name dispute resolution providers. There are now the two major ones for .com, .net, .org, and other sites, but other top-level domain suffixes are the World Internet Intellectual Property Organization and the National Arbitration Forum. There's another one in Europe, I forget its name. The alternative is federal court, and that's expensive and really cumbersome and a big drag.
Which court decided the cases that you mentioned?
Some were by WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, and some are by the National Arbitration Forum. None of these are federal court cases. Criticisms of the current system are that it's skewed in favor of the challenger. It's something like 85 or 82 or 87% success rate for complainants, and there's no real appeal. If you get a decision you don't like, your only option is to commence a lawsuit in federal court within 10 days of getting notified of the bad decision. And that's tough. That's really tough.
Do they have any teeth?
I'm sorry?
Teeth.
Oh, yeah. These decisions? Yes, they do have teeth. What happens when you start, when a domain name dispute case is started, the registrar, like if you registered with GoDaddy or with 1&1, the registrar is notified of the pendency of this complaint. The registrar, by the rules that it agrees to by being a registrar, immediately locks it so it cannot be transferred. And then when a decision comes down, they have a certain number of days to then obey the order. And if it says transfer it, then they transfer. Yes?
What's the minimum cost of being involved in one of these cases legally? Like, what's the minimum? Because maybe it's just better to just buy the domain if it's going to be like $5,000, $10,000 legal costs.
It varies. I mean, it costs to hire one of the dispute resolution providers who do the UDRP, and it's essentially an arbitration. They're like basically court costs. The fee for coming through the door is $1,000, $1,500 for one name. And if you do a bunch of names in one, like Guinness sucks and Guinness really sucks and Guinness really sucks.com. By the way, I like Guinness. So. Then they charge more, and then legal counsel is, whatever it is.
Does it apply to all domains like CCTRD?
It applies to a lot of domains, and the
country codes aren't necessarily under ICANN, right?
There are different sets of rules that cover the different top-level domains. So I think like .us is under a different set of rules that's similar to the UDRP, but it's not exactly the same. And you have to look up and see, and for country top-level domains, I think there's a different set of rules, which is also relatively similar, but still distinct and distinctly different.
Guys, we're going to hold off questions on this presentation because we're going a little over. And if you have questions for Allan, he's going to be here. He'll be in the Genius Bar, so you can ask him some more. But
okay.
I need to close up. John.
I think that's it. Other than questions, we're done. Thank you very much.